And next we have Wendy Moore. She is a founder, social entrepreneur, and technologist passionate about creating work environments so that everyone can thrive. Her career has included opportunities to work around the world with top innovative leaders, companies, and entrepreneurial ecosystems. She is the founder and CEO of Alive Talent, former COO of Helium, and advisor to multiple tech startups. A proud Mizzou Tiger, M-I-Z. She loves supporting local entrepreneurs and is a founding board member of the Coma Women's Investment Network for Entrepreneurs. Please welcome Wendy to our TEDx stage.
I was 23 years old, and I was in my first real job after college, sitting in the corner of a boardroom. I had hit the jackpot of early jobs, and I was regularly in the room with CEOs, executives, and community leaders. I had worked very hard to be there. After working my way through college, I moved to a coastal city where I knew no one. I applied to a blind job ad for an office manager position, and I'd worked my way into this particular boardroom by saying yes to every task they threw my way. I was just happy to be in the room. I was always the youngest person in these rooms by at least 25 years, and on this day, one of two women. The board members all sat around the conference table in their suits, and I sat in the corner, balancing my notebook on my knee, trying to look professional but remain inconspicuous. This was not my first board meeting. I had been joining meetings for months in exactly the same way. I was sure of myself and I was prepared. I was just happy to be in the room. And this day, one thing went differently. Before officially starting the meeting, the only other woman in the room turned to me and said, "Wendy, sit at the table." She asked two of the board members to actually push their chairs apart and asked me to pull my chair forward out of the corner and up to the table. This may seem like a very small moment, but it changed everything about how I engaged in that meeting. I already had a role and responsibilities, even more so than most of the other people in the room. I had a job to do. I was the board secretary. And she reminded me in that moment that I was there for a reason. And that reason was bigger than sitting in the corner, balancing my notebook on my knee. The dynamic shifted that day in that one small invitation to sit at the table. Remember, before that, I was happy to just be in the room. After that, I had a seat at the table. Today, I want to discuss the importance of representation for women in leadership and also explore how we can lift up others and invite them to pull up a seat to the table. Now, I'm talking today about corporate and boardrooms and investment because that's what I know. Those are the spaces that I've had to navigate, and that's the story that I have to tell. And according to the 2023 McKinsey Women in the Workplace study, women, and especially women of color, remain heavily underrepresented across the corporate pipeline for leadership. While women make up roughly half of the workforce in entry-level jobs, we see a steep decline as we move up in leadership positions. Since 2018, the number of women in the C-suite has only increased from 22% to 28%. So it's still only 1 in 4 leadership positions. You can also see there's very little progress in the middle for women in management or director level roles, which is the vast majority of women in corporate America. And at nearly every step in the pipeline, the representation for women of color falls relative to that of white women or men of the same race and ethnicity. We can't dig into all of the layers with this tonight, but what I want to highlight is that the representation for women in leadership continues to remain far below what it should be. And I don't want to see the next generation of young professionals have to be one of only 2 women in a boardroom. These numbers represent the corporate world. And so I want to talk a little bit about the other side of the business world, which is entrepreneurship. We see many ambitious women leaders leaving the corporate world and moving into entrepreneurship so they can grow their own companies and create their own path. But there are significant challenges on this side as well. According to this 2023 Carta Funding report, only 2.8% of funding went to women-led companies in 2023. This actually went down from the highest it ever was at 3.2% in 2021. And this is the lowest amount of venture capital allocated to women-led teams since 2016. Now, we can see that it actually makes a significant difference to have a man by your side. Co-founders that have women and men were able to raise up to 20% of funding in 2023. Now, when I was part of a women tech company, we used to call this "Where's the Dude syndrome?" We used to call this "Where's the Dude syndrome?" We were a female CEO and COO of a tech startup, pitching to rooms full of investors, and we experienced the full spectrum of bias that it takes in the hundreds of pitches it takes to raise an investment round. We were regularly asked, who's going to run the company once you raise the money? Or how do you balance growing a tech company with raising your family? These questions are rarely, if ever, asked of men during an investment pitch. At one of the largest tech conferences in the world, our founder was passed over by a visiting investor who approached the only man in the booth and asked him how he had founded the company. He didn't even work for our company. These stories and worse are commonplace for women trying to grow their own companies and raise investment, which is why I'm now a founding member of an investment group focused on helping women-led companies raise strategic support and capital. Now, these numbers can be discouraging, and it is easy to get frustrated. So today I want to focus on the moments that make the difference. The small moments that are actually completely within our ability to impact. Because I think about that day when I was an eager young professional, just happy to be in the room, and the ripple effect that that moment had on my confidence and my future career. So there are two things about that moment that I want to highlight. First, I received the invitation to sit at the table early in my career. I was still young and idealistic, and I thought that I could change the world as long as I was armed with color-coded sticky notes and prepared enough. I also felt like I also knew that I deserved to be there. So when I received the invitation to sit at the table, I believed that I should, and I internalized that. That moment was the start of a boost of confidence for me that has sustained me in a career in very male-dominated industries. I didn't get invited to sit at the table after 10 years of sharing my own ideas in meetings only to have someone else repeat it and get the credit. I didn't get invited to sit at the table after decades of working hard only to watch others get promoted while I just got more work, wearing me down so I lost my spark and my drive. I am often the only woman in conference rooms, in meetings, and on stage, and I always channel that inner 23-year-old who is just invited to sit at the table and share her voice, because that invitation made all the difference. Secondly, I often think about the woman who invited me to sit at the table. What I didn't tell you about her was that she was the daughter of Holocaust survivors. First generation, she put herself through college while co-founding a company with her husband. And then after his early death, she became the CEO of that company and grew it into one of America's largest private companies. Her story is incredible, and I can only imagine the challenges that she faced navigating the world to get to where she is. I was so in awe of the way she led that meeting with power and grace, and it was inspiring to me as a young professional just trying to find my own path. One of my favorite quotes is from Shirley Chisholm, who said, "If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring in a folding chair." She was the first Black woman elected to US Congress, and she even ran for president. We stand on the shoulders of all these amazing women who carved out spaces where there are none, so that we have the privilege of stepping into them now. I don't want to change these statistics for me, but for all the ambitious young professionals coming after me who want to rise into leadership. They will have a seat at the table so we can all benefit from the amazing things that they can accomplish. So now I make it my mission to extend the invitation whenever I can and to pull up a seat if there is none. And it doesn't take much, the same way that small moment had such an impact on my confidence and future career. Later in my career, when I was in more of a position of influence, I was sitting on the board of a community organization and looked around the room and noticed that we had voices missing. There were critical voices that needed to be in that discussion, but they weren't in the room because they had never been invited. So I reached out, brought them in, and now one of those amazing women is going on to become the next board chair of that same organization. And it can be even smaller moments than that. I had coffee with a friend a year ago, and she was telling me this brilliant idea she had that would help not only her business, but that of other businesses as well. So I encouraged her to be the one to build it. I gave her my ticket to pitch at a startup event, and she won the whole thing. Now, that was my job to invite her into a world of technology and investment, and then support her as she goes out and does amazing things. I did not do the work in either of those stories. Only they could do that work. I just extended an invitation and pulled up a seat if there was none. It takes each one of us reaching out and actually creating the space so we can actually break down those walls and shatter ceilings. And when we do, watch out, because powerful women will accept that invitation and do amazing things with it. So I want to encourage every one of you to sit at the table. Don't be happy just being in the room. Sit at the table, believe that you deserve to be there, and use your voice. And then when you do have a seat at the table, pull up a chair and invite someone to join you. Thank you.